everyone, it's Meg, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my favourite books of 2018. It has been a hot second since I made a video, and finally I have some time. I'm back, the Christmas holiday period is over. I have been so busy with my business and just with life in general, but now I'm back and I am hoping to once again be a bit more consistent with my videos. 2018 was not a bad reading year. I read a total of 36 books, which is the most amount of books that I've ever read. But even though I read quite a lot of books, I didn't love as many of the books as I did in 2017. I only have a couple that are going to be all-time favourites now, but the rest of them were just, I didn't have that many that were like absolute to make a top 10 of 2018. So I have 8 books here and 2 honourable mentions that I have to share with you. So yes, without further ado, let me talk to you about all the books that I loved in 2018. The first honourable mention that I have to share with you guys is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I read this book when the film came out because I wasn't too keen on picking it up. I didn't seem super interested in it, but because the film was coming out I wanted to pick it up. So I read it in 48 hours, went to go and see the film, and I love the book and I love the film. It's one of my favourite book-to-film adaptations that has been out there, and I just really enjoyed the book. I love the friendship group that is in here, and I love the representation and how the diversity in this book, and overall it was just a really enjoyable read. It was super cute, contemporary, and I don't feel like I think about it as often as I do with some of the other books on this list, which is why I'm not putting it on my top 10 or my top books, but it is definitely an honourable mention and I did really enjoy it. And the second honourable mention that I have to share with you is Where the Light Gets In by Lucy Dillon. This year seems to be the year of when I started to pick up a little bit more adult contemporary books, particularly by British authors. I feel like certain adult contemporaries can be a little bit generic or a bit boring, or when I read the synopsis. It's basically about this girl named Lorna, and she is setting up an art studio, and arts is a main subject in this book, and also a lot of topics like grief and relationships and family, and it's really a wonderful book to read. And it also has sausage dogs in it, so how could I not want to read a book that has a sausage dog in it? Love. But I feel like if you read The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R. Pan, I do feel like you would really like this book because it deals with similar topics, like I said, like grief and relationships and art as well. Art is a big topic in this, and it has a magical element into it as well. I wouldn't say it's magical realism, but it does definitely have some sort of magical vibes going for it. So I really enjoyed this book, and I'm definitely going to look into reading more of Lucy's work in the future. So now we are on to my favourite books of 2018, and like I said, I only have 8 books because I don't feel like all the books that I have enough books that I really, really liked that deserve to be on this list. So the first book that I have on this list, I have about 3 that I really like, and then I have about 5. The last 5 books are probably my absolute favourites of the year. So, and obviously these books kind of change depending on my mood. So the first book that I have to share with you on my favourites list is When God Was a Rabbit by Sarah Winman. I discovered Sarah Winman at the beginning of this year, and I absolutely fell in love with her writing. She is genuinely writes some of the most beautiful books I've ever written, and I am going to read everything that she ever publishes. This is her debut novel, and I actually read one of her other books, which I also have on this list, and all of her books have very vague descriptions on the back, and I feel like that should be so you don't know a lot about the book, and I feel like that is the best way to go into her books, just literally know nothing about them. So this book is basically, it's about friendships and family and relationships, and it basically says it's about love of all forms, and that is exactly what it is about. I did really enjoy this book. I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if I had read this book first and not one of her other novels, which is why this is low down on my list. But nonetheless, I did really enjoy it, and if you are looking for beautiful, magical books, then please pick this up, or pick any of her books up. You will not regret it. The next book that I have on this list is The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Hilary Sounds. I read one of Benjamin's other books last year. I really enjoyed it, so I thought I would pick up this book, and this book came to me just at the right time. It's basically, it's a book that deals with relationships and grief and finding yourself. The main character in this book is just trying to find himself and find out what he wants to do and who he is. And I read this book towards the beginning of the year when I felt totally and utterly lost, and it really, really spoke to me. And as always, Benjamin's writing is beautiful. Another book that has just beautiful words, it's everything, it's just beautiful. From the cover to the inside, it's just a beautiful book inside and out. And I really enjoyed it, and like I said, it's a book that came to me at exactly the right time. So I will forever treasure it, and as always, I would love to pick more of his stuff up in the future. The next book that I have is actually a series, which I'm going to include because I couldn't just include one book, and that is To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han. I read the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy a couple of years ago by Jenny Han. I've actually read it twice and I did really enjoy it, and I had absolutely no intention of picking this trilogy up whatsoever. I was not interested in it. I didn't think I was going to like it, but then I found it cheap at a charity shop, so I thought, okay, I'll buy the book. And then the film was coming out, so I thought, okay, I'll read it. And then since the film is coming out, and I absolutely fell in love. Again, this is a story that deals with relationships, especially family relationships, and I love seeing the dynamics between Lara Jean and her sisters, and as you read the trilogy, the growth throughout it, and especially because I marathoned it. I read the first book and then I listened to the second two, an audiobook. Definitely recommend the audiobook if you are looking for a good one to listen to. And I just loved it. You could, like I said, because I marathoned it, I could definitely see the growth of the characters and how much Lara Jean grew in maturity and just as a person in general. I really, really loved that. And it is a cute, fluffy contemporary that has a lot of romance in it, but at the same time it does have a deeper meaning about family connections and relationships, and I really love that. And it's a book that has made me incredibly happy when I read it, so I know I will definitely be returning to this trilogy every time I just kind of need a bit of a pick-me-up. That's something nice and easy and comforting to read. So we're down to the last 5 books now, and the first 3 are probably about the same, and then I have the last 2 books are probably tied for first place because I love them both so much. So the 5th book that I have on this list is Anne of the Island by Ellen Montgomery. This is the 3rd book in the Anne of Green Gables series, and I'm slowly making my way through it. I read a book of this a year just to try and drag it along so that I can read it and hold on to this series for as long as possible, because I absolutely love Anne. I love Avonlea, Prince Edward Island. I just love Anne and all of her friends and the adventures. I love everything about it. And when you come to obviously Anne gets older with each book, and it's really lovely to see how she grows up and how her relationships change and develop with her friends and Marilla and Matthew, and kind of just see her blossom into this beautiful, strong young woman who isn't afraid to go after her dreams, basically. So I can't really talk much else about this book because if you haven't read the series it'll probably spoil it, but I really, really enjoyed this book and I cannot wait to continue with the series. The next book that I have on this list is Persuasion by Jane Austen. I have been reading around one novel by Jane Austen every year. This is the third novel of hers that I have read. I have 2 more to read, and this was probably one of my favourites that I read. Pride and Prejudice will always be my favourite Jane Austen ever, like, story ever. I love the 1995 film adaptation, and I do really enjoy the book. But I feel like as I've grown as a reader on in the years, I feel like I'm able to read and kind of understand the language a bit more. It makes it easy for me to read it. And I feel like I really was be able to delve into this novel and be with the characters. And it is such a charming story. I have watched the BBC film adaptation to Persuasion a long time before I decided to pick the book up. But this is probably my favourite Jane Austen novel that I've actually read, even though I love Pride and Prejudice. And I just love the stories. I love Anne, I love Captain Wentworth, and kind of how you see the look into how they were before and them re-entering each other's lives. And it's just so charming seeing their relationship blossom again, and it's such a wonderful feel-good story, and it just made me all warm and fuzzy from the inside out. So I really, really enjoyed this book, and I'm definitely going to have to revisit it soon. It is just wonderful. Third book that I have is another book by Sarah Winman, and that is A Year of Marvellous Ways. This is the first book of Sarah Winman's that I read, and I absolutely loved it. Again, like When God Was a Rabbit, the writing is beautiful, absolutely stunning, and I just love everything about this book. This book is in 2 perspectives. It is about a woman called Marvellous who lives in Cornwall in a caravan, and then the other perspective is told from a guy called Francis Drake, who is Marvellous finds washed up on the beaches of Cornwall, and she basically takes him in and cares for him. And it's just the story about the 2 of them and their lives before they met each other and when they met each other. And it's also, again, with Sarah's writing, there is magical elements into it, and there's all these stories from Marvellous's youth, and it's just such a wonderful book. I am speechless. Like, I have no words for how stunning her writing is. I believe this is her second book, because God Was a Rabbit was her debut, and she has another book called Tin Man, which I am going to pick up and read this year because I cannot get enough of her writing. Yes, I love this book deeply. I love Sarah deeply. I love her writing. I love everything about it. So can't recommend her work enough, and I cannot wait to read more of her novels in the future. The last 2 books that I have on this list are probably tied for first place because I love them both equally. The first of these 2 books is The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I heard quite a bit about this book when it was coming out, and it seemed like such a wonderful story, so I had to pick it up. And it's basically about this girl whose mother dies from suicide, and she's convinced that her mother has turned into a bird. So she goes to Taiwan to meet her grandparents that she's never met before, to try and uncover all the answers that she still has about after her mother had passed away. Obviously a trigger warning for suicide, because that is one of the main topics in this book, but it's such a lovely book. Even though it deals with a very heavy topic like suicide, it makes it so hopeful, and it doesn't leave you feeling in despair and feeling like there is no hope, because this book shows you that there is hope, and I think that is so wonderful. Again, this is another book that is absolutely beautiful writing, beautiful prose. I have read so many books with such beautiful writing this year, and I absolutely love it. Books with beautiful writing is like one of my favourite things. I love this book, like I said, about how it tackles grief and suicide, but I also love how it includes a lot of culture aspects into the book when Lee is in Taiwan with her grandparents, and I feel like it kind of gives you a little bit of a window into Taiwan and the culture and everything as well, which I loved. So this is now one of my all-time favourite books, and one of my all-time favourite mental health books, and just all my favourite book of all time. One of my favourite books of all time. I can't talk today. Yes, absolutely beautiful, stunning, love, love, love. And the final book I have on this list is one that I was probably not super late to the party with, but definitely later to the party with, and I've actually read it twice this year because I loved it so much, and that is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. John Green is an author that I have mixed relationships with. I have read all of his books apart from Abundance of Catherine's because I have no interest in reading that book, and I had no interest in reading this book when I heard that it was coming out until some people had read it and started talking about it, and they were kind of talking about how the plots, the synopsis that is originally given, it's not really about that. It's more about Ava and her struggles with her mental illness, and so I thought I would pick it up. It was the first book that I read in 2018, and it is now one of my favourite books of all time, which I absolutely love. So this book is basically about a girl called Asa, and she has OCD and anxiety, and it's basically about her struggles with that, because it's about her struggles with that, and it's just so wonderful. I felt like I could really relate to this a lot as somebody who also suffers with anxiety, and it was just one of those books that I could really, really relate to. And as you can see, I've tabbed quite a few quotes on it, and there are certain quotes in here that I think about nearly every single day because I loved it so much. And I read it a couple of months ago again for the second time because I just feel like I needed to delve into it again and just revisit the story. It's just such a wonderful book. I love the representation for mental illness in this book, and I just can't a lot of people have been raving about this book, and they have been raving about it for a good reason. It is such a wonderful book, and I just love it. I have no words. I love this book. It is amazing. So those are all of my favourite books that I read in 2018. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing all of these wonderful books that I read this year. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you would like to see more bookish videos from me. Please, and leave a comment down below if you have read any of these books or what your favourite book of 2018 was. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all had a wonderful 2018 and an amazing start to 2019, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!